Hey guys, it's your girl, the Bria Serenity. I'm back at you with another video. Now, this video is going to be talking about the Lord's international plans for some of his people, okay? I said in one of my videos recently that the Lord is calling his people to think bigger, to get to higher ground and think bigger. A lot of you are being called to leave the United States. A lot of you are going to be international. Some of you are just going to be doing a lot of business, a lot of back and forth, but some of you are actually moving. Like, you're actually moving to a whole other country to live there. Okay, and there's an assignment that he has for you there. A lot of you can't even perceive or be able to conceive why the Lord would have you uproot your life and move to a whole other country. Even though you probably like to travel, but living in another country seems a little bit extreme. He said that there are many people who are hesitant to leave the place they were born into and travel abroad. But the reason that you are being called out of here is bigger than you. What he's calling you to do is bigger than you, and it did not start with you either. There's a prophetic word I released like 2 years ago called unfinished business that is related to this. And the Lord said that some of you are an answered prayer that your ancestors prayed a long time ago. One of your family members, your ancestors, whoever, were following God, and they had a desire and they had a prayer, and they said, Lord, get me and my family out of the United States, because maybe they saw what was coming. Maybe the Lord gave them wind of what was coming. Maybe because they knew that they were never supposed to be here, that they were brought here illegally, and that they wanted to return to their homeland, or they wanted to return to a place that the Lord wanted them to be, or they had visions of a place and they knew it wasn't here. Whatever the case may be, some of you are an answered prayer. Right now, it is your time to pick up the baton, to pick up the mantle and take it further. Okay, it did not start with you. Some of your family members knew that they could do more abroad. They were very limited here in the U.S. This is why placement is so important, because a lot of people think that, you know, you could be wherever and do what God has called you to do. But sometimes you are meant to be at a specific place at a specific time to really get into action. Depending on what the Lord has you doing, he knows that whatever he's calling you to do, you cannot do it here. You have to do it abroad. You have to travel. You got to get out of here in order to fulfill whatever purpose he has set you on. And even though your ancestor was limited and they were not able to do it, the desire and the prayers that they prayed were passed on throughout their descendants. So even the Lord hears the prayers of the people who have passed on. He remembers them, right? And we see this with King David and Solomon, how, you know, David had a desire to build the Lord's temple, but the Lord said, no, you are a man of war. You know, you have shed blood. You know, you're not going to be the one to build my temple, but your son will, your descendant will, and I will establish your kingdom, and your descendants will reign over Israel forever, right? That is what he said. And he kept that promise to David even long after David was gone. And so the Lord remembers the prayers of the people who have passed on. So there are still some prayers that your grandma, your great-grandma, your ancestors that you don't even know their names, you don't know anything about them, have prayed about concerning themselves and their bloodline that are happening now. And I think that's also important for us to acknowledge that just because we have a desire and we have intentions to do something doesn't mean that's what the Lord is going to call us to do, right? And we can have a desire in our heart to say, oh, I want to be a millionaire and I want to do this. And the Lord is like, I'm going to honor that prayer. I'm going to honor your prayer for abundance and prosperity. However, you're not going to be the one to touch that million. It may be your grandchild that touches that million. And some of us have to be okay with that, right? Some of us have to be okay with, like, every prayer that I pray, God may not use me to be the one to carry it out. It may be my son. You know, it may be my daughter. It may be their grandchild. It may be their grandchild's grandchild. You never know. You know what I'm saying? So we have to always understand that we pray and the Lord hears our prayers, but the way the Lord is going to manifest that prayer depends on what he has in mind for us. And we always have to submit to the Lord's will. It may not be the Lord's will for you to be a gazillionaire. You may be the person who just lays the foundation so that the next person can be one. And that's okay. That does not mean you're not going to have an abundant life. That does not mean you're not going to do what God has called you to do, because David did everything the Lord set him out to do. He had a purpose. It laid the groundwork and the foundation for Israel to have prosperity after he left. He was one of the best kings that they ever had. You know what I'm saying? And so he laid the foundation so that they can have a prosperous future. And a lot of people will say legacy does not matter. Legacy is vain. On the contrary, God would like to disagree. A lot of the people who came before us laid a foundation, and some of us may have forgot that foundation. Maybe our parents or the parents before them kind of lost their way. They kind of lost sight of their identity, or somebody just chose to not follow God, and so they strayed from the path. And the Lord waited for the right person to come through the bloodline so that he could use them and do what he has called them to do, to finish unfinished business. Your mama didn't want to live right. Okay, I won't use her. Okay, that person don't want to live right. I ain't going to use them either. Okay, your grandma didn't want to live right. Your grandfather didn't want to live right. Okay, I'm not going to use this. It's going to keep skipping until the right person comes along, and that's who he's going to use. Even though David had a righteous desire to build a temple for God, you know, God chose Solomon. Okay, and Solomon's name meant peace, right? David was a man of war. David was literally the epitome of all my life I had to fight. David was all my life I had to fight. That was him. All his life he was killing people, slaughtering people. He was a man of war. He was laying the foundation. He was doing a lot, right? So that Solomon could have this beautiful, established, prosperous kingdom, right? A lot of that was because of stuff David laid the groundwork for. It wasn't because Solomon just had all this stuff. David laid the groundwork, and then Solomon asked for the wisdom to steward what his father had left him with. And he prospered because of that. He's like, okay, you're not going to be the one to do it. Your heart is in the right place, but you're not going to be the one to do that for me. I'm going to use somebody else from your bloodline to do it, though. That's how I'm going to honor your prayer. Now, we have to understand that David's reign was multifaceted, and it was tied to God's plans for Israel. So God's plans for David were a lot bigger than the temple. And that's not to say that the temple was not important, but David had bigger fish to fry. 2 Samuel chapter 18 verse 6, it says that the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. And the Lord gave him victory because he needed David to defeat all of Israel's enemies so that he could secure the borders and enforce peace. He needed to make sure that they were safe, to enforce it. He had to fight off all the Philistines, all these people. He was constantly at war. He was constantly at battle because he had to secure the borders. David's victories were also related to a part of the promise God gave to Abraham. So all the things that the Lord is doing for you, do not think it started with you. Do not think that you're just something special. Okay, even though, yes, we are special to the Lord. He loves us. We are all uniquely and wonderfully made. However, the things that he's having you do and the mission that you're on did not start with you. Started somewhere, but you weren't the first person to do it. Okay, there's somebody, even if you don't know who this person is, I promise you there's somebody else in your lineage who was doing, had the desire, and was set out to do some of the things that you are doing right now. Promises made to your ancestors that the Lord is using you to carry out. David was also used to establish Jerusalem as the capital and brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, which was the heart of the nation. So he unified the nation by leading Israel in obedience to the covenant. So David did not play about the Lord. He loved the Lord and he led them according to God's laws and God's ways. Was he perfect? No. Did he make mistakes? Yes. But he always tried to lead the people with God in mind. He always had God. He loved God so much. He never turned away from the Lord, ever. The Davidic covenant was also established through David. So the lineage of Jesus Christ was promised to come through David. And this played a big role in the Bible. Okay, Jesus Christ is everywhere, and the Lord is like, I'm going to use you. David also helped prepare Israel for the prosperity of Solomon's reign. So Solomon inherited a kingdom free from external threats, with wealth and resources accumulated by David, which gave King Solomon the privilege to focus on building the temple and developing Israel further, allowing them to prosper. So David had his role. David led the movement. David laid the foundation, the groundwork, and he made it so that Solomon could prosper. Solomon had everything that he needed to be a prosperous king, to have a well-established kingdom. David's not so much, because David was still laying a lot of the groundwork. Okay, and that's how it's supposed to be. You guys, we are supposed to take this torch and we're supposed to run our race, and we're supposed to go full speed ahead and do as much as we can so that the people who go after us can continue on with what we laid the foundation for. But if we don't lay the foundation, if we don't do the work, if we don't even try to follow God, that's not really leaving our children or our grandchildren much to work with. They're going to be scrambling to do what we should have been doing, right? So legacy is important to God. It is not vain. It's something that's really important. A lot of you who have international plans, like I was saying, you guys are an answered prayer. A lot of your ancestors laid the groundwork so that you guys could be able to travel, so that you guys could be able to leave this place and go abroad and do what the Lord has set you out to do. Whoever this person in your bloodline is, okay, they had a prayer to get out of the U.S. That was their prayer for their family and their descendants to go travel abroad, to not be confined. You guys have to understand that a lot of our ancestors, not just African Americans, okay, not just Indians, they had a desire to get out of this place. They had a desire to leave the U.S. That was a prayer. They cried out to God and said, God, remove me and my family from here. And God said that he would, but it would not be through them. It would not be that family that was going to leave the U.S. And now some of you, your time has come to go to the place where you're supposed to go. Now, I don't know if the place where God is calling you to is some type of familiar place where maybe your ancestors came from, or maybe it's a land that was promised to them in some way. I'm not sure. That's something you would have to seek God about. That's something that you would have to be praying about. But even you hearing this prophetic word will be a confirmation to you, because the Lord has already spoken it to you, saying that this whole thing did not start with you. You wanted to go abroad. You wanted to travel abroad and be out of the U.S. and have a dual citizenship somewhere else. That was not just for you. Somebody laid the foundation, the groundwork, so that you could be able to excel and go to these places. And wherever these places you're going to go, you're going to have favor because of the prayers of somebody else who you haven't even met. You don't even know nothing about them, but their prayers are being honored through you. Okay, what you're doing right now is something that the people who came before you could only dream of. A post on Facebook where it was saying you're literally an ancestor's dream. You're literally your great-grandmother's dream. I do remember seeing one lady on TikTok who was saying that she was always having dreams about two little girls, right? She was always having dreams about two little girls, and she would always see them, and she swore up and down that she was going to have daughters, right? But she was really seeing her great-grands. She was really seeing her great-grandchildren in a dream, and they were born, and she was able to catch a glimpse of them, and they look exactly the way that she saw them in her dreams. So she thought that those girls were her daughters, and in a sense they were her great-granddaughters, right? And she was able to see them. But sometimes we have these dreams, we have a desire, we have a feeling that we're supposed to have something, that we're supposed to push something or birth something into the earth. And sometimes the way that happens is misconstrued. Sometimes we think we're going to be the ones to do it actually, but really it's somebody in our bloodline that's going to bring that forward. So you guys are the ones who are bringing something forward because your ancestors prayed for something and the Lord remembered them. The Lord has not forgotten about that prayer. You are an answered prayer, and this international plan that the Lord has for you is tied to that. And you really need to be seeking the Lord about it because the Lord is having a sense of urgency behind it. It's going to be something that happens quickly, but you also need to have strategy. This is not something that you can just up and do. You can't just spend the money, get a plane ticket, and go get it one way. You got to do research. There's a process that you have to go through. You have to be seeking the Lord about when, where, who, and what you're supposed to be doing, your assignment when you get there. Don't just go somewhere, just fumble into a place, abroad. There's so many people who have done that, and I've heard so many horror stories. It's not a good look. You only need to be doing this if the Lord has called you to it. Don't just be doing it because you feel like, oh, that sounds like something, it would be cool. If the Lord did not call you to leave, if the Lord has not been showing you dreams, if he has not been speaking to you concerning this, do not uproot your life and go do this. You are an answered prayer. Some of you are your ancestors' wildest dreams, and you are a prayer that they prayed to him, and he's honoring it. He did not forget. Also, why it's so important to pray for your children's children and their spouses. Okay, because our prayers are honored long after we're gone. Okay, let's remember our prayers. The Lord will honor those. Even if we don't write it down, we could have said a prayer in our private time, and we just consistently crying out to God for these things. Our prayers can protect the generation that comes after us. Oversee, it can help steward them. Okay, because God will honor it. Okay, he hears the prayers of the righteous. Okay, so those prayers don't just go away because, oh, you're dead now, it doesn't matter. So do not ever think that you're praying something in vain, and just because you did not live to see it does not mean that God is not going to honor it. Seeking the Lord in your private time about where he wants you to move, the strategy, how he wants you to do it, when he wants you to do it, where he wants you to go. It's just, I see and feel something really, really big happening. And a lot of these people who are moving abroad, who are going to be international, you're going to be doing some really, really big things internationally. Quality of life is going to be a lot better for those of you who are being called there. You're going to have a quality of life that you never thought that you could have. Beautiful. It's going to be beautiful for those of you the Lord has called you to. It's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be a life that you didn't even think was possible. Very, very different. Of course, there's going to be a lot of adjustments and things you're going to have to adjust to. But if the Lord called you to it, he will give you grace. He will see you through it, and he will protect you. Okay. For those of you who are called to move international, and the Lord has been saying this to you, you need to prepare. You need to prepare. I had told you guys in that video that if you don't have a passport, you need to go get one, and you need to do it before 2025 because there's going to be a lot of changes to passports in 2025. If you have a passport, your children should have a passport. You will be leaving and you will not be coming back. You will not be coming back to visit. That'll be it. Some of you won't be permanently gone as in leaving the country, but you will be doing a lot of business abroad, so you'll be doing a lot of traveling. You'll be catching a lot of flights. So even then, you need strategy with that. You need purpose with that. You need to be seeking the Lord in your private time. Be fasting and asking the Lord to give you strategy. Asking the Lord to give you insight as to what he wants you doing. Don't just hop around just doing stuff. Okay, when you international, they have different laws. There's different things. You need to know what you're doing. The Lord is just allowing me to release this prophetic word as a reminder and letting you know that you moving abroad is a lot bigger than you. People have laid the foundation so that you can be able to do what you're getting ready to do right now. Do not think that this is just random. Do not think that God just picks you, okay, to do this. Like, this has been long in the works. Like, the Lord has been having people in your family. People have been doing things, praying for things long before you were born so that you would be able to even take this leap of faith. The Lord also spoke to me concerning obedience and how the obedience is really, really important because other people are tied to your obedience. A lot of us are so selfish. We only think about ourselves. Well, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know how that would affect me. And the Lord is like, this ain't just about you. It's just about your bubble. This is way bigger than you. There are people that you are being called to help, and you cannot help the people that I'm calling you to help or shepherd the people I'm calling you to shepherd if you're not in the place where I need you to be, to have access to the resources and things that you need to have access to. You are going to be building places for people to come, okay? There are going to be some people who are international real estate agents. You're going to be creating safe havens for people where you are abroad. It's like you can't help nobody if you first don't obey me when I tell you to move. And for those of you who are not moving abroad, this still applies to anything. If you're still within the US or wherever you're at, if the Lord is telling you to move, if the Lord is telling you to move around, stop thinking about, oh, what you want to do. Stop thinking about, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I'll be happy with that. I don't know. It's not about you. Stop saying I. Take the I out of it. People think they can carry out God's will and be wherever they feel like they want to be. That's not how this works. There are other things dependent on you being where you need to be. I think I've talked about this on my channel before. Encounters and things that must happen, but they cannot happen until you are in the right place around the right people doing the right things. Be doing the right things in the wrong place. You could be doing the right things with the wrong people, or be doing the wrong things with the right people in the wrong place. You need to be in alignment. You need to be on the same page as God. You need to be seeking him. And this move is heavily dependent on something much larger than you. So even though right now you're thinking you're the only person who has to carry this weight, but in time you will understand why the Lord is going to have you leave. Perspective, but first you need to leave. But first you need to move around. First you need to separate from the things that no longer serve you. And after a while, and it may not be right away, but there may become a time where you have to come back. And you will have the perspective that you need to have. But there are other people relying on you to be obedient. Other people in your bloodline that are going to come after you that need you to be obedient. Legacy is important. Be obedient. My name is Abria Serenity. If you haven't already, click that like and subscribe button. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss any more uploads from me. I love you all with the love of the Lord, and I'll see you guys next time.